Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. No fancy introduction today because we have one thing on our mind, and that is progress. We've got a few approaches today, and the first one is going to be the crystal circuits, getting up to LUV and eventually to UV circuits. And maybe we don't even need a second approach because that looks like it's going to take all of the computing stages of Gregtech, which if you don't know, means that we have to invest in silly things like this, and this. And since last time, we actually have a new solidification wall for our fusion products. The first one is going to be doing liquid europium 2 ingots, and we have a buffer of 1024 ingots, which took a very long time. And I guess we'll see today if we actually have time for the ultimate parallel hatch. This hatch is going to allow our Gregtech multi-blocks to finally surpass the Star Technology super blocks. And if you don't remember, these Star Technology super blocks are actually capable of producing 320 items per second, while things like the large chemical bath were sorely outclassed. But we'll see if we have time for that. For now, let's... that's starting to look a bit threatening. Yeah, I don't like that one bit. I think it may be time to get rid of it. But we'll see. It just looks so bad. Why doesn't nature make things look aesthetic? So let's start things off right. Let's torch it.
That was a lot of fun.
Anyway, let's get back to it. So first step is we're going to need our liquid europium and an exquisite emerald in an autoclave. And that's going to get us a raw crystal chip. And right now, let's just make an LUV autoclave, the wrong terminal. So we'll need plates, glass, the casing, and the pump. And the pump. Thank you. Alright, I guess it didn't request the plates. It's useless. Thank you. And here's where we'll place it. And the reason why is because we're going to need 3 sides for I/O. We're going to need an input, another input, and a storage bus. Input number 1 is going to be exquisite emeralds. Thank you, ore processing. We'll give it a conveyor. And set that to import. Number 2 is going to be liquid europium. Thank you, fusion. And the pump for import. And then we need a storage bus with extract only. I don't want to be infinitely producing these because that will consume europium. Too much so. So let's just plug all that in. So this recipe is a 10% chance at high voltage. It is 30% at EV, 50% at IV, and 70% at LUV. Which means more often than not, we will actually be getting a raw crystal chip. But this is a slow process. We don't want to be using this one forever. So what we can do is with these raw crystal chips, we can actually forge hammer them down into the chip parts and then do it again, but this time for a guarantee. It does take the same amount of time though. So what we'll do is we are going to automatically send in these raw crystal chips into the forge hammer. So conveyor for import, set the import mode, allow items, and set the auto extract into there, into an interface. Then what we can do is we can actually request another autoclave. And, oh my gosh, so many replans. And we can get another autoclave, and we'll use it to import the other recipe here. So importing the raw crystal chip parts. So this will import the raw crystal chips, and this is going to import europium again. So that will be pump and conveyor module, both set to import. And then suddenly we'll be making another source of these raw crystal chips. There we go, I've made another. So then this will start to fill up. And what we will do is we're going to set this to a high priority. So that means that anytime there is raw crystal chip parts in the system, they will be directly imported into this autoclave to be made into more crystal processors. And what we'll do is we'll actually output those into an interface because we can buffer up these. These raw crystal chips, I'm actually not sure yet if I'm happy or not to let these infinitely buffer up. I haven't decided. I think just because these take so long to process, it won't matter. But if I start to see that I have 2 billion raw crystal processors, then maybe we'll have a problem because it'll just be using a lot of europium. But I think we do make it fast enough to support a fair amount of these. So who knows? But next up is going to be setting the recipe for the engraved crystal chip. And that's going to take an olivine plate. It's actually going to take an emerald plate for us. And a raw crystal processor. Sorry, a raw crystal chip. And the emerald plate, just cutting an emerald block. We have tons of emeralds, so that is not an issue. And the final step of this is going to be laser engraving in the clean room with a lime lens. And so what I think we'll do is we'll actually just auto input that and buffer these up as much as we can. That does, however, mean that we need an LUV laser engraver. So let's request one. There we go. And done. And we can place the next LUV machine. Believe we already have a lime lens. We do. So we can place that in there. An interface to request the engraved crystal chips. And what we're going to do is we're going to set a buffer limit on this storage drawer for our engraved crystal chips. As we can see, we've already got our crystal CPUs ready to go into here. And what we can do, because we are very sneaky, is we will place a level limiter and a machine controller on top here to stop engraving once we have 512. So we'll get a conveyor for import. We'll also set the output as well on the bottom, importing the engraved crystal chip. God, the names of these are really getting on my nerves. And you know what? Since all of this is passive, let's actually have a passive blast furnace. I haven't done one of those this entire series. So let's request a controller. That was fast. Oh my gosh. A muffler hatch. What coils do we have? We have RTM, but I'm not sure if RTM is going to be enough. No, HS, it's, yeah. No, we need HSSG. But we have Naquadria coils, so let's just use those instead. And we should have the rest. And we'll get a few crafting cards because we are horrible, horrible people here and we love crafting cards. And so this is how we're going to get around passive buffering. So input hatch is going to need to be helium. This input bus is going to need, not olivine plates, goodness me, emerald plates with a crafting card. And this input bus is going to be raw crystal chips, which will have a lower priority than the forge hammer, so that when there is excess crystal chips, they'll get sent into here and passively made into engraved crystal chips. And this is as simple as putting a storage bus on the output bus. Connect all of these together, and we can see our emerald plates are coming in. Place our converter, angle it upwards, soft mallet, flux plug, selection. Done. And now this is going to work away as we get crystal circuits. That was a little bit harder than I expected. And this has had a maintenance issue. That's interesting. Well, we're here. We may as well replace it. That's the pure netherite dust. We actually need that going. And one reload later, hopefully that can stop happening. It's happening here as well. But I think it's just an issue with this current version of the game. Oh, it's happened again. Oh, stop it, you silly sausage. Oh. Okay, well, right. Item filters it is. And all we have to do is go to the conveyor, blacklist, crystal chips. That shouldn't happen anymore. Wonderful. And then we go to this conveyor, filter, blacklist, crystal CPUs. There we are. All we have to do is put crystal CPUs in there. Awesome. So minor correction here. It's not the elite autoclave that needs the high priority. It is the forge hammer. And the forge hammer actually needs a storage bus on it, on extract only. Thank you. I don't know why it imported a debris dust. And so now, no auto output, thank you very much. So anytime that a crystal CPU builds up into here, then we will make sure that we only have the internal buffer of the machine, rather than filling up our applied energistic system with them. See, there we go. Because now this is full. We won't over buffer this. And these are set to, let's just have that actually set to 1. Thank you very much. So we don't buffer in everything. That's what happens with these expensive things. You don't need massive buffers everywhere. The machine internal inventory is going to be enough. Then we can have our level emitter set to 512 of those. Emit when levels are above. And then a machine controller on the top. And that's it. Limiting is as simple as that. Alright, so let's get some more facades and start cleaning up the clean room. So it doesn't show in the recipe book at all, but all you need to do is put these cable anchors around the block that you want, and you'll get the cable anchors that you need. And it works with any block, or as many as I've tested. So that's all you need to get the facades. And so let's just start patching up the clean room, because I'm pretty sick of seeing all of this ugly nonsense all around here. Well, that chemical reactor's not even built, so God knows what I'm supposed to put there. But there we are. That actually wasn't too difficult. Let's just update to the futuristic automatic maintenance hatches, which completely nullifies the need for maintenance. Can you believe after this long, this is the first we're doing it? And there we are. That's a pretty clean room. Maybe we make these white. Let's just see how that looks. I don't know. What do you think? Leave a comment down below on what you think I should do for the rest of the clean room. And we've almost filled up the forge hammer. These autoclaves working tirelessly around the clock to provide us with the brand new latest in technology. And I say we're almost filled up. This internal buffer is going to fill up 64 times. So there's going to be 64 crystal circuits in there before we even get a single one in our blast furnace. Oh well, that's the price we pay. Either way, let's start taking a look at these circuits. Oh, look at that. It doesn't even require us to edit anything. That's so easy. So the first is the cheapest IV tier circuit. Then it's LUV. Then ZPM, and then finally UV circuits. This is actually going to require the assembly line and a fair amount of research. Also requires, I don't know how I just removed those. That's impressive. It's also going to require HSSE frames, but otherwise we have everything else. We can remove the data orb and then set the recipe for the HSSE frame box. So let's set those recipes. And we've got a lot of waiting to do before we can even start crafting them. So I'll be honest right now, I am definitely feeling the progression paralysis bug right now. I'm looking at this nearly completed quest page and wondering what the hell am I supposed to do next? Well, lucky for you, I have actually the solution. And it's called getting on with it. We need to be able to make ZPM components and ZPM tier assemblers. And that's going to require a lot of stuff. So let's just sit down and think about it for a sec. So the next goal is to get the Fusion Reactor Mark II. Like how we used to upgrade our blast furnaces, we now need to upgrade our fusion reactors. And so there's a few components here that we just need to work on. The first one is Naquadria. So we actually refine it, but we can't process it yet because we don't have a ZPM assembling machine. We also don't have the uranium rhodium naquadah ingots because they also take trinium coils. And the reason we don't have trinium coils is because it requires a ZPM assembler. And either we make the ZPM energy hatch or we make the ZPM assembler. And one is definitely easier than the other. So let's make the easy one. So to start with, let's see if we can request an Elite Assembler 3 or the ZPM assembler. And it looks like we're just missing the recipe for the ZPM machine hull. Looks like we're also missing osmiridium plates out of one of these recipes. Osmiridium plates again. And okay. So let's set the recipe for the ZPM machine hull. Totally fine. It's PBI. The ZPM machine casing. Also very easy. And an osmiridium plate. Also very easy. And with our enhanced pattern terminal, we can put plates and machine hulls. So now we should be able to request the rest of these components. Just clicking through. Nice. Okay, there we go. So that's going to take a fair amount of time. And the next thing we should work on is getting some ZPM power in the base, which is going to take ZPM converters. So let's just start setting recipes here. And we'll work backwards. So we need this 16 amp ZPM converter. We then will craft 4x wire into 16x. And 4x wire we are going to use, is that the right one? That's not the right one. We're going to use the wire mill on circuit 4. So how do we make dragon steel? Well, dragon steel dust is tungsten, shellite, and twinite with refined sunflower oil. So we can make everything except this refined sunflower oil, which requires a distillery, so we'll just put that on passive. Crystallized sunflower oil is an amethyst shard and sunflower oil, another thing we'll probably put on passive. And brewing is sunflowers. Sunflowers we can grow or sieve. There's definitely another way of making this, right? That can't be it. That can't be the only way. I'm not going to automate dirt sieving. No way. Nope, it looks like it is. So that's fine. We can just place a sunflower down, grab my trusty auto clicker, and spam. Pretty simple stuff, right? Okay, so we're no longer going to passive this because this is going to take a bunch of different crafting. So let's get this brewing recipe going. Then we can have our mixer recipe going, and then a distillery, which I suppose we might end up passiving. So we're just going to run this all at IV. So we're going to need a tungsten steel spring for the brewer. So we'll just bend a long rod and then extrude a long rod from an ingot. And let's start putting these patterns in. So we can put our 4x wires in there, put some of these patterns in some molecular assemblers. It turns out we can also actually just run around the sunflower to get more sunflowers. Feels like scaling up here might do the trick. You always need to find ways to have fun in this game. So let's get our elite brewer. Hopefully those components don't take too long to craft. It did not. The elite mixer, all done. And now the distillery. Oh, please. My goodness me, why so many replans? And done. Whoops. Okay, so we do have an IV line going across here. And so we're just going to plug into our normal wall. So we need the brewer, the mixer, and then the distillery. All powered up nicely. So this is not a complicated process at all. We just import sunflowers into the elite brewery. We'll then output the fluid into the mixer, where we'll have another interface importing amethyst shards. Once that's mixed into crystallized oil, which we will make sure we send out into the distillery, we will then need a circuit 0 to distill from crystallized into refined. So circuit 0 and done. So it is as simple as that. And it would be so rude not to buffer an absurdly large amount of this stuff. So we'll place a storage bus and we'll set the filter to refined sunflower oil. Okay, that should work. So let's grab out our conveyor modules, place 2 down. Here's a quick tip on how to access covers without going into the machine. Just use a screwdriver. You can press import on both of those. Right, so the conveyor's not fast enough. Simple fix? No. Open up the machine if you're going to change the conveyor and import. And then you hook up your ME lines and it should all start working. There we go. So 8 seconds to distill 600, which means that these processes are going to be definitely limited by this. But there we are. We have our refined sunflower oil. So we should be able to request some dragon steel. But I think... oh no, it only takes naquadah. Very nice. So let's now set a pattern here for dragon steel smelting. Again, we do our 64 because everything takes so long in this game that you may as well do it in batches. Add it into the blast furnace barrel. Set the filter on the vacuum freezers. So we can now actually request a ZPM 16 amp converter, which is just fantastic. And we'll probably have some... And we'll probably have some dragon steel left over to spare. And you know what would have been smart is if I had have actually done the research for the ZPM components. So let's cancel those crafts, drain the input hatch and the input buses. And we're going to need to request the LUV robot arm, the LUV conveyor, and the LUV motor, as well as the piston for research. So those running should take up most of the base's resources now. Very nice. And that's worrying. It appears our tree has started to grow back. Looks slightly different though, doesn't it? I don't know, maybe we just needed to, you know, trim the vines so that the tree could grow. I don't really know. I'm not really going to worry about it now because it's so small. I could crush it with my pinky toe. Alrighty, time to research. We can put the motor in. and stare at the wall for 60 whole seconds. Research the piston, conveyor. Big news now as we have everything researched, but we also have our ZPM 16 amp converter, which is great. So we will put in our data sticks, request the rest of the Elite assembler. It's already started working, very nice. And let's request 4 of these wires, which is going to take 8 dragon steel ingots. And then we can just break them down to 2x wires. And then we can break them down into 1x dragon steel wires. So now, once all of these components have finished crafting, we are going to be able to power our assembler, which we'll need to find a spot for in here. And I think the ZPM line can just go up around here. And it seems we've been buffering quite a few of the crystal CPUs. So let's just start a request for a few of them. There we are. We've requested 1 of each of the crafts. And to be fair, they are actually very simple. There's the first. We have our LUV circuit. It's not going to pop the quest until we have the IV circuit. But I have a feeling that our blast furnaces are all tied up, still making that dragon steel. At 80 seconds a pop, I don't blame it. Yeah, there we are. Actually almost done now with our ZPM components, but we're just missing the samarium, which is held up by the blast furnaces. What a surprise. So I just received the notification that we have crafted up everything. So now we have our ZPM assembler, which isn't a quest, but it's about to unlock some really great things. Left the helmet on. So parts in hand, let's open up our new ZPM shop. We'll place our converter, the flux plug, bypass the limit, smack it with a soft mallet, place down our shiny blue cables, a pattern provider, and the assembler. We'll also make sure that we output down the bottom and allow input. So I have had this processing pattern sitting in this chest for a very long time, and I figure let's hand deliver it. And we are going to need a lot of Trinium coils. So we need 42 per blast furnace block, and we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 over there. So we are going to need 42 times 4 Trinium coils, which as you can see is a fair amount of Trinium. And this is unironically 2 hours of crafting. No time like the present. So let's just get it going and hope. I will see you in 2 hours. So we have all of the coils we could ever possibly need now. So let's do the thing. God, we just have so much fun here with those time lapses. But, you know, I do think that that's probably about time to wrap up today's episode. Doesn't feel like much, but these Trinium coils were an absolute pain to get and took up most of this week's time. Which does feel like, you know, we didn't really do much, but it's Gregtech. Not feeling like you're doing much is the way you're supposed to feel. So next episode, we're going to be working on the research station databank and the HPCA, so we can finally start upgrading our hatches and a lot more. Because we need UV circuits and fusion coils to get the fusion reactor Mark II, and there's just so much more to do. And we're going to keep an eye on this tree, make sure it's not growing. We might have to start putting a field around it just to make sure it doesn't sprout too much. And to nobody's surprise, the large sieve has actually entirely filled our ore storage wall. And our ore processing subnet is almost entirely full, mostly with naquadah and sheldonite now. So that may need an upgrade as well. But if you like my stuff and want to see more, you know what to do. Subscribe and like the video, as well as turning on the notifications, because it seems that YouTube doesn't actually notify you as much as it should. So make sure you click that bell. And with that all being said, thanks for watching, and bye bye.